So let's talk about this game between the Knicks and the Wizards. As we saw in MSG, in Madison Square Garden, we saw the next star or the next big player do stuff that happens in MSG. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, we saw in this game Jordan Poole dropped 41 points and he played 20, let me repeat this, 27 minutes. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about this entire game. But first, let's start with the obvious. Jordan Poole went crazy. I think this is the first game that he's played as a Wizard. He's using 13, obviously, because 3 is going to be retired next year. Well, not next year, but as soon as Bradley Beal retires, it's his number. He's been wearing it for forever, and he's the best Wizards player of all time. Maybe next to like Elvin Hayes, who actually won them a championship. But apart from there, in the modern era and in what the Wizards have been for 90% of their history, he's their most memorable player. Not named John Wall, but as we all know, John Wall got injured and left prematurely. And Bradley Beal gave everything to that franchise. They had a lot of love for him, and it got to a point where eventually they traded him, and they ended on good terms. When we look at the Wizards, it's obvious that they're going to be a team which this season struggles a lot. They're going to be a team which has to run lineups out there. They have to test what's good and what's bad. And they're going to be basically in a season where they focus more on just defining who their guys are as opposed to really, wanting to win. The Wizards, as we know, have been in win mode for the past maybe 10 years, with little to no tanking in between. They're a team which has consistently tried to win but really failed. And now that they have Jordan Poole, we could see that Jordan Poole is probably going to win a lot with them. It's obvious that it's his team. He's going to get to bring the ball up the floor every time if he wants to. He's going to be able to create space for the guys. He's going to have basically what he wanted on the Warriors, which was, even though the Warriors were a championship team, it's obvious that battling with Steph for minutes is suicide. The only guy who could, in history, battle with Steph for minutes is Magic Johnson. And apart from that, some people would still take Steph. But in the Wizards, Jordan Poole is the guy. He gets to play as much as he wants, for as long as he wants. He gets to play however he wants, and even if he messes up and has a bad game, it's not going to hurt his team enough for him to, be affected by that, or his team to be affected by that. In this game, he played 27 minutes, and he had 30 in the first 2 halves. I'm pretty sure he didn't play the fourth quarter, and he dropped 10 for 19 from the field, 50% from, which is more than 50%. 50% from 3, and 15 free throws with 16 attempts, with 5 rebounds, one of them being offensive, 2 assists and 2 blocks with 4 turnovers. As we saw, he had a masterful game and just basically put the Wizards on his back, and also think about that in these types of games in preseason, there are a lot of, like garbage time there is. So in a regular game, he probably would have notched 50 if we're being 100% honest. And he did this in the Garden too. And Jordan Poole just had the game of his career, dropping 41 on 50% shooting from 3 and from the field, basically doing it meanwhile being in Madison Square Garden and basically showing the world like, yo, it doesn't matter where you put me, I'm always going to be great. And I deserve to have this team to myself. Really made a statement as to who Jordan Poole is for this season. It's obvious that he wants to handle the ball. It's obvious that he wants to be the star player because it's what he wanted in Golden State, and that really hasn't changed for him. The only thing that happens now is that now he has full control over his, touches, the way that he plays, and the way that he carries himself. I believe that Jordan Poole is about to have the best season of his career, and that's not hard to say, especially as he just had 41 points on phenomenal efficiency. from the Knicks' perspective, we see that they played a pretty decent game. Their stars played more than anticipated, as Julius Randle played 29 minutes, Mitchell Robinson 24, Jalen Brunson 25, RJ Barrett 34, which is a lot of minutes. But they played well. The fact that they actually kept up with the Wizards, even though they got blown out in that first quarter, in that second quarter they did badly, but in that first quarter they beat Washington when it comes to scoring. The only problem is that when that second and especially that fourth quarter came around, it was just like the Knicks couldn't look back and be like, oh, this is unsavable. Julius Randle scored 20 points pretty efficiently, 4 of 6 from 3, with 10 rebounds, and played a phenomenal game. Mitchell Robinson went 6 for 9, scoring 12 points. Jalen Brunson played a pretty terrible game with 12 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds. And RJ Barrett shot pretty well. He had a decent game, and he had 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. When we look at the Knicks, they look about the same from last year. They're obviously going to be good in the regular season, and Jalen Brunson did have a bad game, and they still managed to not lose by 40 points when Jordan Poole really did that to them. And honestly, it's obvious that the New York Knicks don't really care up that much about the preseason. They're playing right now just to get to the regular season, and they want their stars to just be prone. They played around 19,763 fans, which has to be tough for your fan base to go and see you get cooked like that. But honestly, the Knicks look good. They're going to keep being a team which is effective and does the most with their players. And especially when they play their full lineup, and especially when their stars are getting the minutes that they deserve, it's going to be very nice to see the Knicks next season, especially with how they play the game all the time. For the Wizards, some other players which were really good were Tyus Jones, which shot a perfect 50% from the entire game. He had 7 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and 13 points, being extremely good as their point guard. We had a guy like Bilal Coulibaly, which I just want to congratulate him. He got 3 steals. And he's a rookie, and he's been looking really good recently. I also want to say, shout out to Taj Gibson. He played 7 minutes and got 5 points, and especially at his age, and 1 assist, and at his age is pretty good. And lastly, I do want to say shout out to Mike Muscala, who shot 70% from the field and 5 of 7 from 3, had 8 rebounds and 20 points for the Wizards with a plus 12 plus minus. I just wanted to say that. When we look at this game, we could really just see maybe the birth of a star, And I don't want to sound too cinematic or too dramatic or too like it's like I'm saying that Jordan Poole's gonna be, the next Steph Curry, because we don't know that. But we could definitely see a young player being developed the right way. He's a player, Jordan Poole, who has been the face, right, of the modern era in terms of his play style, how he carries himself, and the way that he plays on the court. And we've all known him as a straight bucket, as a guy who can get out there and really make some shots. But when we see this game, we see him and his effectiveness on our court. Jordan Poole is not just a scorer. He can actually make really efficient shots and carry a team to victory over a playoff team. And when we look at this, what we're seeing is how good can the Wizards be this year? Can they actually be good? Is Jordan Poole going to be this excellent all the time? And is Jordan Poole able to do these things just because he's a great player, or is it because he has all of this freedom? For all these things, we don't know, and we're not going to assume. But all we want to do is say that let's hope that Jordan Poole can be like this for the entire season, and let's hope that he can keep being this great. A player who scored 30 points in 2 quarters, that's definitely an explosive scorer. But when we look at this game, what do you guys think? What do you guys see from Jordan Poole? Do you guys think he's going to stay in Washington long term? And do you guys actually think that this is going to be something that we see every once in a while, Jordan Poole going crazy? Or is this just like a blimp to, because of a good moment? Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.